Gopedana Vallabha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, we're sharing the screen.
Where's this screen?
This is up there.
Huh? Yeah, no. Can you show me the screen that's directly connected? Why is it delayed so much? It's not. Why is it going down?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6. A new chapter, Purusha Shukta Confirmed. Kind of curious what Purusha Shukta, how can being included? Truth is like a collection of verses. Krishna was control us if you are some cosmic. This chapter is describing uh, the universal form of Krishna presence. Another way to see and understand his presence. So starting with text 1. Guess I'll start and then we just do the
Let's do this trans. Oh wait, is that the main version?
The main verse is
Oh, they give you the translation version.
and then come back and we'll just start and think. Lord Brahma said, the mouth of the Devaprastha, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, the controlling deity spire. His skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the great skin. And his tongue is the productive center of different foodstuffs and delicacies for offering to the demigod, the forefathers, and the general mass.
His 2 nostrils are the generating centers of our breathing and of all other airs. His smelling powers generate the Ashwini Kumara demigods and all kinds of medicinal herbs. And his breathing energies produce different kinds of fragrance.
His eyes are the generating centers of all kinds of forms, and they glitter and illuminate. His eyeballs are like the sun and the heavenly planets. His ears hear from all sides and are receptacles for all the Vedas. And his sense of hearing is the generating center of the sky and all kinds of sound.
His bodily surface is the breeding ground for the active principles of everything, for all kinds of auspicious opportunities. His skin, like the moving air, is the generating center for all kinds of sense of touch, and is the place for performing all kinds of sacrifice.
The hairs on his body are the cause of all vegetation, particularly those trees which are required as ingredients for sacrifice. The hairs on his head and face are reservoirs for the clouds, and his nails are the breeding grounds of electricity, stones, and iron ores.
The Lord's arms are the protective fields for the great demigods and other leaders, other than who protect the general mass.
Those the forward steps of the Lord are the shelter for the upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for all that we eat. His lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds.
From the Lord's genitals originate what is semen, genitals, grains, and their fears. His genitals are the cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting.
Oh Lord, the evacuating outlet of mantra and the evacuating hole and the return of the Lord, please, misfortune, death, health, etc.
The back of the Lord is a place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flow great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked great mountains.
The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his valley is the resting place for a mutilated living entity. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies living being. Thus it is known by the intelligent class of men.
Also, the consciousness of that great personality is the abode of religious principles. Mine, yours, and those of four bachelors, Sanat Kumar, and Sanandana. That consciousness is also the abode of truth and truth.
Beginning from me, from Mount, now to you, Shiva. All the great sages who were born before you, the demigods, the demons, the nagas, the human beings, the birds, the beasts, as well as the reptiles, and all phenomenal manifestations of the universe, namely the planets, stars, asteroids, luminaries, lightning, thunder, and the inhabitants of the different systems, namely the Gandharvas, Asparas, Apsaras, Yaksas, Rakshas, Bhutaganas, Uragas, Pashus, Pitash, Siddhas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and all other different varieties of including the birds, beasts, trees, and everything that be, are all covered by the universal form of the Lord, namely past, present, and future, although he is transcendental to all, eternally existing in a form not exceeding packages.
So, well, read the Sanskrit from text 1 in the purport. So we see those this little section. Brahmavacha,
Brahmavacha,
Nambahir Mukam,
Vachane,
Sam Satadatam,
Shadasam, Satchatavam,
Abhyamitananam,
Avyakam,
Asaga Rasasya,
Jivasara, Visasya,
Brahmovacha,
Brahmovacha,
Vacham Vanirmukam Kshetram, Tasam Saptadatavaha,
Shadasam,
Avyakavyamritananam,
Avyakam,
Jiva Sarva Rasasya Cha,
Jivasara, Visasya,
Go ahead.
Brahmavacha,
Brahmavacha,
Kamshetram,
Vachamanayam,
Saptadatava,
Charanam, Saptadatava,
Prananam,
Avyakam,
Rasasya,
Jivasara, Visasya,
Brahmavacha,
Brahmavacha,
Kambanirmakam Kshetram, Saptadatava,
Shadasam, Saptadatava,
Avyamritananam,
Avyakam,
Sarva Rasasya Cha,
Jivasara, Visasya,
Brahmavacha,
Brahmavacha,
Vacham Vanir Mukam Kshetram,
Vachamanayam,
Chandasam Sapta Dakwa,
Chandasam, Saptadatava,
Abhyakavyam Ritananam,
Avyakam,
Ija Sarva Rasai Rasha,
Jivasara, Visasya,
Brahmavacha,
Brahmavacha,
Lord Brahma said,
Vacham,
Vacha, of the voice,
Vame,
Vame,
Fire,
the fire,
Mukam,
Mukam, the mouth,
Ketram,
Ketram,
generating
the generating system,
some
Chandasam,
Vedic hymns,
the Vedic hymns,
of the Vedic hymns,
such as Gayatri,
Sapta,
Sapta,
Tattva,
Jatadava,
skin and 6 other layers,
skin and 6 other layers,
Abhyakavya,
Abhyakam,
Siddhika,
offering to the demigods and the forefathers,
Amrita,
Amrita,
food for human beings,
food for human beings,
Anana,
Anana,
all sorts of good stuff,
all sorts of good stuff,
Jiva,
Jiva,
tongue,
the
tongue,
tongue,
Sarva,
Sarva,
all, Rasasya,
Rasasya,
all,
all delicacies,
Cha,
Cha,
also. Translation purport by His Divine Grace, Lord Brahma said, the mouth of the Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. His skin and 6 other layers of the generating center of Vedic hymns, and his tongue is the productive center of different foodstuffs and delicacies, for offering to the demigods, the forefathers, and the general mass of people. First quote. The operations of the universal form of the Lord are described here. It is said that his mouth is the generating center of all kinds of voices, and his controlling deity is the fire demigod. And his skin and other 6 layers of bodily construction are the representative generating center of the 7 kinds of Vedic hymns, like the Gayatri. Gayatri is the beginning of all Vedic mantras, and it is explained in the first volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. Since the generating centers are the different parts of the universal form of the Lord, and since the form of the Lord is transcendental to material creation, it is to be understood that the voice, the tongue, the skin, etc., suggest that the Lord in his transcendental form is not without them. The material voice, or the energy of taking in stuff, is generated originally by the Lord. Such actions are but perverted reflections of the original reservoir. The transcendental situation is not without spiritual variegated. In the spiritual world, all the perverted forms of material variegatedness are fully represented in their original spiritual identity. The only difference is that material activities are contaminated by the 3 modes of material nature, whereas the potencies in the spiritual world are all pure, because they are engaged in an unalloyed, transcendental loving service of the Lord. In the spiritual world, the Lord is the divine controller of everything, and the living entities there are all engaged in his transcendental service, without any contamination of the modes of nature. The activities in the spiritual world are without any of the inebriations of the material world, but there is no question of impersonal avoidance on the spiritual platform, as suggested by the impersonal. Devotional service is defined in the Narada Pancharatra as follows: Saurabhadhi nirmuktam Atpara Dena Nima Nirmalam Krishatina Hishpesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. Originally, since all the senses are produced of the Lord's reservoir of senses, the sensual activities of the material world are to be purified by the process of devotional service. And thus the perfection of life can be attained simply by purifying the present position of our material activity. And the purifying process begins from the stage of being liberated from the conception of different designation. Every living entity is engaged in some sort of service, either for the self, or for the family, or for society, country, etc. But unfortunately, all such services are rendered due to material attachment. The attachments of the material affinity may be simply changed to the service of the Lord. And thus the treatment of being freed from material attachment begins automatically. The process of liberation is therefore easier through devotional service than by any other method. For in Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it is said that one is subjected to various kinds of tribulation if one is impersonally attached. Vasho Vikta Vika Tadastisham Avyaktas Sakta Chepasam. So this is an interesting chapter, a lot of esoteric things to discuss in here. I wanted to maybe give you a long talk about things that are beyond my full comprehension. I wanted to open up for discussion and ask, what do you think of? What comes to mind when you think of these verses? That the hairs, Lord's body, the trees, and different descriptions of material elements and how they relate to the Lord and how they relate to us. What comes to mind? Was that it?
Yes.
What do you think of?
I was surprised that there's impurities on the Lord on his entire backside.
Yeah, it's a little mystical.
But I like his eyes being twinkling like sun.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. I remember when I was a young devotee, we said the sun is like the eye of the Lord. And just made me think whenever the sun was on me, God was seeing me. Seeing that was kind of. What else?
Well, just thinking about what Nate was saying about the back, the impurities, it symbolizes that if we, because Krishna says he reciprocates accordingly, right? And so precisely how we approach him. And so if we turn away from him, he turns away from us, and that represents ignorance. Right? So he's turning away. He's saying, okay, if you don't want anything to do with me, that's fine, I'll just go do something else. So if he turns away from us and we're turning away from him and not trying to please him, then we go into ignorance. So it represents that, but it doesn't mean he becomes impure by that. It's not his impurity, it's
our impurity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anything else? Yes.
I think it's interesting that his nails are like the minerals and the iron that comes from mountains. So it's like the hard part of his body.
Yeah. Somewhere it's described as nails as a source of electricity. Electricity is powerful. We get the harness. I get someone said it to someone I don't know if it's true, but the story about invented electricity, flying a kite and got caught in a storm, electricity came down the string.
Benjamin Franklin
Sorry.
was playing around with that.
Playing around, and so when you see lightning, especially up close, the power, if you ever see a tree or something that's hit by lightning, tremendous amount of energy in that lightning. We're all struggling to generate it. So much energy there and electricity, and we know how to move it. I've been told, I don't know if it's true, but I've been told that no one really, even electricians and physicists, no one really understands electricity. We just understand how to manipulate. We can move it, make it do things, but no one really understands what it is, where does it come from. It's just true with a lot of material. Scientists are very good at manipulating things. They can't originate them, understand where they come from. Yes.
That's just an interesting piece of trivia about the thunder, how powerful it is for lightning. If we're able to harness just one single thunder or lightning, in New York, the city of New York will be able to supply electricity for like a couple of years. That's how powerful it
And that's
is.
just one thunderbolt.
Oh, we can't harness.
Yeah, so much power there. And that's just the nails described in the Lord. That's not his strength, that's just a small part of it. Yeah, that's a good point. Anyone else? So two things I wanted to read here. And it's described also in places that this universal form of the Lord is sometimes described as imaginary. Because actually, we were reading last night, Lord Brahma, before he created the universe, he was trying to see where is the Supreme Being. He couldn't find him anywhere. He couldn't see him because he's transcendental. The Lord is completely beyond material energies. But these descriptions are given to understand because he has a form. He has arms and legs and feelings and a head and eyes and feet, just like we do. It's just because they're transcendental, it's hard for us to understand. What does transcendental mean? So these descriptions are given. And they're not untrue, they're not inaccurate. The hairs of the body are like these. They're very powerful ways to understand and see that everything comes from Krishna. So just two verses were quoted here that I wanted to elaborate to read. One at the end here mentioned Bhagavad Gita 12.5. It said that it's very kinds of subject to very kinds of tribulation. So I'm just going to read the translation for Bhagavad Gita 12.5. It says, for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So there are schools of thought and schools of spiritual practice where they say that God is not a person. You're not Brahman or some force, or the force be with you, kind of bright white light, different conceptions, but basically he doesn't have a form, he's just everything. Of course, that's true. Those things are true. There is a force, but those are emanations from him. The original core of it. There's a really nice thing we read last night. We were reading the Bhagavad Gita, Gopi Pranadhana, his purport. The verse was about Lord Brahma describing how he was looking for the Lord in the lotus when he was born, and he couldn't see him anywhere. He couldn't see him because he's transcendental. God is transcendental, so it's not a material thing. And so in the purport it mentioned that sometimes, probably heard this before, that sometimes it's described that Yoga Maya, which is one of Krishna's energies, will will make the devotees forget that Krishna is God. That this blue cowherd boy that plays the flute is the supreme person. He'll even maybe make Krishna forget that he's God. He describes that actually that's not true. Doesn't forget that actually what Yoga Maya does is reveals the reality. So on one level, Vishnu is there, Narayan is there, God's supremacy is powerful, and all these things. That's one aspect of God, but in the core of who he is a two-handed cowherd boy that just likes to play. That's his real identity. These other things are secondary. Yes, sometimes he takes on the role of God, and sometimes he does these other activities, but when he just wants to be himself, he just plays with his friends. First the cow. That's his core identity. It's like, so that was kind of profound, interesting point. So the other thing I wanted to read was it mentions here devotional service defined in the Narada Pancharatra as follows, and it gives us verse. Sarvapadi Vinirnita. So I just wanted to read the translation to that verse because it's really powerful. This is in the Narada Pancharatra. It's also in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion, which is a powerful description of Bhakti Yoga. And this verse is given in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the translation of that verse is Bhakti, or devotional service, means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of all senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So this really struck me when I first started going to the temple in San Diego. This one is free from all material designations. It was quite amazing. You'd have kirtan. The temple in San Diego is about 2 blocks from the beach. So it's a beach town. And so on the Sunday feast, you have kirtan, and then you sit down in rows and they serve everybody. And you look down the road, you'd see a lawyer wearing a tie. Next to him is a surfer with bare feet and shorts. And then all these different personalities that you would never ordinarily see in the same time conversing, because they just come from completely different walks of life. And yet here they are, all in the same ecstatic mood of chanting and dancing and feasting. And I just thought, wow, this really is, it removes, when you have a really rip-roaring kirtan, a nice feast, you forget, I'm American, I'm this, I'm that, I'm unemployed, I have a big job, I'm Italian, I'm whatever the external designations we have go away because you're just living in it. And so these material designations just, are all external, bodily identification, or professional, I'm this, I'm that, whatever our title is, or whatever our business card says, all these things become irrelevant. We're just spirit soul. So anyway, I just thought this was kind of powerful description of devotional service, how automatically these becomes, we lose these material designations and we become purified just by doing something that is pleasing. Devotional service is an amazing thing. We just have fun You eat and make spiritual advancement, dance and make spiritual advancement, you sing and you get purified. And it's an amazing process. So anyway, I just wanted to read those two definitions that were quoted in here. And yeah, and the other thing, I guess for me, when I read these verses, it's hard to understand how all these things manifest. The generating center of the voice and the controlling deity is fire of the voice. That would have perplexed me, how the fire is related to the voice. But it helped for me when I read these descriptions. It really helps solidify the understanding that there's nothing we can do. First of all, there's nothing we feel that Krishna doesn't feel. He gets happy. Sometimes he gets a little agitated or not angry, that he's not controlled by anger like we are, but he'll sometimes go and punish people or chastise people who need to be corrected. He had, foodstuffs, this process of eating and playing, all these activities are there in the Supreme. That's why we have these desires and different sensations that we experience. And on a deeper level, anything we do requires some element. Again, back to this description we were reading last night about Lord Brahma, he needed to create some sacrifices, and there wasn't anything, there's just the material elements. So if we think about, we want to worship the Lord. Okay, I'm going to worship the Lord. Well, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to do an arti, so I need bricks and flowers, water, punch. Well, all those things I need, I can't make them appear. I have to go get them. Well, that means they exist somewhere. That means somebody created them. And so all the material elements, everything that exists, all the energies are provided by the Lord. And so then we take those energies and we arrange them in a certain way and we offer them back to Him. We're not offering Him something that He doesn't have. It's like if Christmas time comes, somebody gives you a gift, they're giving you something you don't have. You're happy just because you like them and they gave you something. You don't really care what they give you. You like getting something. But let's say they gave you something you don't have. Here's a new phone, a new computer. Oh, I'm benefited. I have something I didn't have. But anything we offer to the Lord, He belongs to Him. Because we had to get it somewhere. He didn't manifest it. So we're giving Him something that's already there. So it's kind of like, well, that's not very wonderful thing. And that's not very good. But the story that I think of that helps me understand it is you've got the little girl, 6 or 7, and she wants to make a cake for her father's birthday. I may have said this before, an example I use a lot. So she tells Mom, I want to make a cake. So what happens? Mom makes the cake. I mean, the girl stirs and flour goes everywhere, but the mother basically helps her make a cake, puts it in the oven that the father paid for, and they make the cake. Put the flour and the sugar and the water in the oven, the mother's understanding of the recipe and actually how to do it. Everything about this cake, the little girl really didn't have a whole lot to do with. And so then the cake's there, and the father comes home and shops for this cake. The father's like in ecstasy. He's like, oh, this is so nice. He feels all this affection. Well, why? He's getting something that he paid for, and his wife probably baked. But because the love of the child wanting to offer it, it touches him. Oh, this is so sweet. And so, yes, we get everything we can offer to the Lord, He owns, but that thing that we're offering, whether a candle or a leaf or flower, whatever it is, it's a vehicle. It's a container that holds our love, and then He can accept our love. Yeah. So these verses help me to understand or see that the mountains, the rivers, the sun, the sky, the air, all of these material energies, they're coming from the Lord. So in a material sense, in a physical sense, we can't be separated. We're not separated from the Supreme. We can't be. It's impossible. Because our bodies, the light, every material thing, the electricity that makes the microphone, everything we come in contact with is one of His energies. It's coming from Him. And so on a physical, material level, it's impossible to be separate from the supreme absolute truth. It's impossible to be separate from God. In fact, if you really want to blow your mind, there's places described in the scriptures, and Prabhupada elaborates, that we're actually, to think there's a spiritual world and a material world is an illusion. Everything, Krishna is supreme, he's spiritual, 100% spiritual. All the material energies come from you. Well, if you have an original source of spiritual, anything coming from that is spiritual. It can't be different from the source. And so, on an absolute level, we're all spiritual beings who are still in the spiritual reality. We've forgotten that, so everything looks material. So the idea that the spiritual world is over there, far away, and I'm here, is illusory. It's like, no, we're in the spiritual world. We are spiritual. Everything's spiritual. But because we've turned our back, because we, out of a desire to enjoy separately or have some other existence, we've forgotten that or want to forget it, then it's like, okay, everything will look material and behave material and feel material. But it's a pretty profound thing, but it's not. And that's why this process, as soon as we turn around and engage these material things, so-called material things, in devotional service, and engaging in serving the Lord, then everything becomes spiritualized. Prabhupada explained how whoever made this microphone, I don't know what company this is, but the inventor and creator of this microphone right now is making spiritual advancement because he created something that can be used to glorify Krishna. So this microphone becomes spiritualized. And it sounds a little far out, but another example I really like, helps me understand it. So if you've all been to a campfire, so at a campfire you roast marshmallows. So if you take an iron rod, this might be hollow, but if you take an iron rod and you put it in fire, and you hold it there, it's iron. Iron is cold and hard. If you touch iron to paper, it's not going to do anything. Nothing's going to happen. But if you take an iron rod and put it in the fire, you take it out, the end of the rod is red hot, it glows, touch it to something, and you'll ignite a fire. So how can iron ignite a fire? Iron is not flammable. But you've now converted all the molecules in that iron rod, they are now fire. They're glowing red, and they contain the elements of fire. And anything they touch, they'll ignite. So you've now transformed iron into fire. So in the same way, when we take a material thing, iron rod, and we engage it in spiritual activity, devotional service, it's like sticking the iron rod into the fire, then that material thing, the so-called material thing, becomes spiritualized because it's engaged in spiritual activity. And so then it has the potency of spiritual energy. That's what it's being used for. In the same way the iron rod takes on the qualities of fire. So this is Bhakti Yoga. This is the potency of Bhakti Yoga. We take material things, by engaging them in devotional service, they become spiritualized, including us, including our consciousness, our bodies, our being becomes spiritualized. And to the degree that we do that all the time, and sometimes in the beginning, maybe we do it for a while, and then we don't do it, and so the iron comes and goes back to iron, becomes gold. But over time, when that process never stops, and we're always engaged in spiritual activity, even if we're sleeping or dreaming, then we become fully Krishna conscious. We become spiritualized, where we're always just seeing everything as Krishna's spiritual energy. And then everything dances, and it's very wonderful because all these energies are very wonderful. They're coming from Krishna. So when we see that connection, so for me, these verses help me to see that connection. Oh, the sun is like Krishna's eyes. And now the sun, forever in my life, takes a different meaning. I see the sun, I don't think of fusion and hydrogen and all these things. They may all be there, but I'm thinking, oh, Supreme Lord, see me. So that gives whole new meaning to sunshine. So anyway, that for me is how these verses are kind of powerful because they help me see, like the bones, the mountain strength, the qualities of Krishna are very, and they become very tangible, very energy. And it becomes enlightening because then we can see there's nowhere we can do. We can walk on the ground, we can feel, the rocks, we can see like the bones of the Lord. We were never really separate from just in our mind will tell us so many things. The Malachi, when we were Prabhupada's original disciple, she said something. It was a really interesting exchange I saw her, and it said, whenever I see her, I think I should ask a really meaningful question so I can learn from you, but I can never think of a question to ask. And she said, discourage, so she gave me an answer anyway, but I didn't ask the question. She says, discouragement or depression is a gift from Maya. You don't have to receive it. So this is one of the illusions that comes into our minds that there's some cause to be unhappy or discouraged. And it's like, no, you don't have to accept that. No, I don't have to be discouraged. I can be happy. I can be enlightened. These things come in our mind. Our mind tells us so many things. And because our mind is inside, it's not outside, it's in here, the tendency is, well, I have to accept it because it's like my mind is telling me, so it's real. It's like, no, it's not actually real. It's not actually you. The mind is not us. Earth, air, fire, water, ether. Mind tells ego. The soul's over here. The soul's transcendental. The material elements are there. So we can tell the mind, no, sorry, not today. And anyway, I don't know how I got on that topic, but anyway, these verses are helpful to understand that, that the sun is not just a ball of fire. It's actually a way that the Lord can see me. The trees, talk about tree huggers and environmental people, well, they have reason. The nature is divine. Environmentalists want to protect the environment for good reason because it's magical, it's special. Without water, and what is it in Mother Earth News back in the day that they said 6 inches of topsoil in the air that we breathe? I forget the actual quote, but our whole existence depends on 6 inches of topsoil and whether or not it rains. Because in spite of all our technological advancement, AI and computers and all these things, if you can't eat, you're not going to live very long. And if you don't have 6 inches of topsoil and it doesn't rain, you're not going to eat. All your bits and bytes and artificial intelligence are not going to solve that. So what does that mean? It means that the earth and the oxygen and the water and all these material elements, so-called material elements, without them we cease to exist. So that makes them pretty special. And so then we can come back and, well, why are they special? Because they're parts of the Supreme. Hopes that makes sense. Wonder. Anyway, that's what came to mind when I read verses. So just want to open it up again for any questions or realization. Yes.
I was thinking about how this one time the devotees asked Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, do you see the super soul everywhere, like between the atoms and everything? Is that how you see Krishna everywhere? And he said, no, that's not how. And he gave the example that just how when you look at my glasses on the table, think instantly that, oh, these are Prabhupada's glasses. And so similarly, when I look at everything, it's think like this belongs to Krishna, it's connected with Krishna. So all these, so there's so many things that this is actually somehow connected with Krishna or coming from Krishna. But I like that one, the mountains being the falls. The mountains can be so formidable, right? So it's them being Krishna's falls, like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's a good example. You see a really beautiful flower or sunset. It's such an art. Look at the color. Look at like one of my fascinations is champak flowers, the plumerias. Like, look at the colors of some of the flowers, the subtleties and the gradients. Like, that's an artist. Who thought up this? Anyway, that's another hand. Yes.
I feel like there's sometimes some like hindsight bias when you find out a process and then you're like, oh yeah, like I would have thought of that or something. And then I just think that like we're so used to this world, but it is so incredibly creative, and you have to like take a step back and realize that this, yeah, everything's so creative. Eating, sleeping, like doing all these things is really like weird.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
I once heard a quote, and it went along the lines of something like, "Nature is the original technology," and that was just giving me a perspective of why nature is the original technology.
Yeah. Yeah, they talk in when you study Prabhupada, you see this theme coming out. The scientists talk about nature as being this external thing and how to manipulate it, but it's an energy. Nature, it's not accidental. You know, it's an original energy of the Supreme, and therefore, well, I mean, it's just when I see the clouds in Florida. I moved from Maryland 2 years ago, and Florida has very dramatic weather. Feel close. And these clouds are amazing water transportation system. They pick up water from one place through evaporation, and they carry it somewhere else. And you do the Krishna lunch thing, so you're carrying things a lot. So if you carry a 5-gallon bucket of water, it's not light, pretty heavy actually. And yet these clouds contain how many gallons of water? And they're floating. So how do you transport a lot of water? You need a lot of trucks. You just float it. Why do you float water? Well, look at the clouds. It happens every day. It goes from here to there, and then it dumps down this torrential downpour of this heavy substance that was floating. And it's just like, this is nature. Who designed that? Did that happen by accident? So you could give a whole talk just on water itself. A couple elements and water. It's just big. Anyway, that's a whole different. Yeah, that's a good point. At least it's original technology is quite fascinating. Good stuff, too.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, this is an excellent class, and I really like the point that you were making. How there's nothing that like we feel that Krishna can't feel. There's like our experiences and our emotions, because we come from him. They're I they're the same. I don't want to say the same because he's the supreme, but they're similar enough at least. And it reminds me of a quote from a lecture that Prabhupada gave in 1966, where he says, "The complete whole is not formless, because if he was formless, or if he was less than anything, then he could not be the complete whole. He must have everything within our experience and beyond our experience." And I thought that was nicely correlated with what you were saying.
Yeah, that's a nice quote. They usually go over, so I'm trying to good now. If you can talk, you have questions.
You were mentioning that just like what Stephen just said, that you can't really offer anything original to Krishna because he has everything. But I've heard people say that the only thing he doesn't have is own love. Say something about that.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And that is, we can't offer him anything original, but our love is original, coming from us. And the way your love to Krishna is going to feel different, taste different to him than someone else's, because you have a specific nature. And the one thing, and this is a really profound topic, Krishna is self-satisfied. He doesn't need anything. But there's evidence, tons of evidence, that Krishna thrives. He hankers for it. He looks for that love. He needs it. Like he's addicted to it. And so On one philosophically, you can say, well, Krishna is self-satisfied, he doesn't need us. But the reality, fact, he created you because you have an ability to give him something that no one else can give him, that he wants it. And we each have a specific relationship with Krishna that we can give him pleasure that no one else can give. And in the same way, Krishna has a quality, he's got infinite qualities. He has a quality that you can admire or appreciate that other people, no one else will see.
Mm.
Right? Krishna had a certain personality that Arjuna never saw. Arjuna was his closest intimate associate, but he had a certain personality and presence for Bhishma that Bhishma could see. Arjuna couldn't see it. Arjuna was behind him, and Bhishma was in front. There was a whole pastime, and so he had a relationship with Bhishma different from Arjuna that Arjuna couldn't understand. Bhishma understood. Bhishma was an ecstasy, the whole pastime behind that. But the point is, yes, that love that we have, unique, we can offer, and it's something that Krishna hankers for. He strives, he yearns for it. He's very eager to get that love, and he's very eager to give it. I don't know if that helps. Well, that's a really good point. Thank you. That is the one unique thing we can offer. It's the original thing. The original and unique. Someone else out there.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Yeah, I always like along those lines. Illustration that I heard, I always like that. But in this world, you can put two kinds of parties. One party is like totally ignoring owner of the house. You don't invite it. You go inside. It's like looters, right? Straight up one side, go through the fridge, use everything. And how do you think that makes our house feel like? It's called police. And the other one, you're invited, you invite everybody else. It's kind of the center of the party. The appreciation, of course, is going to make you feel so.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful not to be a looter in this world.
Don't be a loser. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah. We'll stop there. Thank you all for your.
This one? Do this. Glory to the Lord, release from all kinds of sins, so that you your soul sense barely
On that note, good morning.
Yeah.
Thank you. Brad is taking a little longer.